All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Big Book Compendium Book Study. Actually, Great Reality Book Study. That's the old name. Welcome to Big Book Compendium Great Reality Book Study. That sounds better. Um, so I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. So last week we ended with the question. So we're going to start right off on page 35. And we last week we started with we ended with a question. And it says, what sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? You know, so we're going to answer that question later in the evening. Um, but let's go on. It says friends who reasoned with him after a spree, um, which has brought him to the point of divorce. Hold on a second. My computer's being really weird. All right, there it goes. Um, Divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks into the saloon. Why does he do this? What what is he thinking? So this is a story. Um, the story we're going to read now is Jim, whose real name is remember Ralph Furlong, was a story called Another Prodigal Son. His last drink was on June 6, 1938. He's not one of the first 40 of Alcoholics Anonymous, but not soon after that. The first 40 were the people that when Bill looked at Bob and said, "Hey, we got something going here," they started writing the book. And he may have, he probably was right around the same time the book got done and got published, sometime later, you know, in about 8 months later, but from his sobriety date. Says our first example is a friend we should call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. Has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. So remember that. He inherited this automobile agency. He has a commendable World War record. So when you have a commendable World War record in those days, they're talking about World War One, of course. You would wear like a medal or your veteran badge. They called it back in those days, and you would pretty much get free meals. It wasn't so you get free meals. It was just what people would see that and they would say, "Hey, sit down over here. He's the best seat in the house." So you got a lot of gratuities there. He is a good salesman. I think we're all good salesmen in our mind. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we see, except a nervous disposition. And the thing about it is, remember the man of 30, nervous disposition. It says something like that too. And I tend to think what they're talking about is being restless, irritable, and discontent, how we feel like when we're dry. And we would be fooled into the state of it, that our mind is insane. We can't handle life, so I need my drink, right? They take away that restless, irritable, discontent. So what's restless, irritable, and discontent? It's the high anxiety I feel, coupled, not separated, coupled with being easily pissed off, easily annoyed, and never satisfied with life. I have that feeling. So that's probably the nervous disposition they're talking about. Um, he did no drinking until he was 35. So he was a late bloomer. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated, he had to be committed. So he had blackouts and went crazy. On leaving the asylum, he came in contact with us. We told him what we knew of alcoholism. They said, Jim, basically you have the mind that's condemning drink against your will, an obsession which is an obsession. And when you drink alcohol, a craving develops. You lose all control once you start, and that's a physical allergy. And then also, what else did I say to him? Go to meetings? No, I said, and the answer we had found. So they spoke of the discovery of God as a result of the program of action, the 4 through 9, declaring a way so we can find God. Sad part is so many we explain it to, they want to stop, know it's killing them, but they don't do the work. You see it happen all the time. All the time it happens, all the time. So it says he made a beginning. So what they're saying there is he made a decision to turn his one life over to the care of God. So what is, we'll go deeper to that in step 3, but A decision is simply it's a thought process prior to taking action. If I make a decision to turn off this Zoom right here, we're still sitting here. And until I pull the plug, take the action, it goes away. So he says he made it. So the reason I say it's step three is because, they told me after they had found God and the steps, and he made a good beginning. So he made a decision. And then around the same time he made a decision, look what happens. His family was reassembled. So he lost his family. He began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. Remember, he inherited a liquid business. That would be the obvious he inherited. So say he's the owner and CEO, got fired from his own company because of his drinking and his anger and everything else. He gets sober. They feel sorry for him, probably because his family in there too, and they hire him as a salesman, not in the offices, but a salesman. Think he might be a little resentful, possibly embarrassed, being the former owner, having to walk in the back door of that company as a salesman. Let's see how it works out. All went well for a time, but he failed to go to enough meetings. No, it's not what it's going to say. That's what we hear all the time. All went well, but he relapsed. Did they say, oh, did you hear about Jim? The majority of people are going to say, oh, I haven't seen him for a while. No, here's the real reason. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. He talks in this book about perfecting enlarging our spiritual way of life through work and self-sacrifice for others. He didn't take the action. He may have been sincere in all his heart when he did step three, but he stopped on the decision, meaning he's still on step three. Nothing changes, nothing changes. He took no action. The insane mind's still there, the obsession is still there. He still wrestles irritable discontent. But before he starts four, he gets his wife back, gets the kids back. Life's great again. It doesn't matter if fear and resentment is running his life. He doesn't care about that. As long as everything looks good out here. We love the picture outside ourselves. We love to play this character. You know, um, it's the stage character that Mark Houston talks about a lot. So what happened? You know, what made him, his instincts got fulfilled. He got his wife back. Now he's not in fear of, getting his family back. And who knows how much of the decision was to get his family back, get his job back. Got to be towards one thing. So, he got the new job, got his family back. And why do step four? Let's see how this works out for him. Everything is okay. To his condemnation, he found himself drunk half a dozen, drunk. So he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. It doesn't say slow, rapid succession, which means, yeah, I don't mean, drink and then got drunk again. That's not even relapsing as it's going. So it says on each of these occasions, we told him, to get lost, you're fired. That's what people do nowadays. People go back to a person and the guy goes, I drank again. Oh, you're fired. No, on each of those occasions, we work with him. That's what we're supposed to do. Reviewing carefully what had happened. It's the word carefully, patiently with the person, what had happened. We're not supposed to rub their nose in it. We're not supposed to tell them what they failed on last time. So every time after he drank, they met with him all 6 times. It makes it sound like there. And they hammered home again the allergy obsession more and more and more, harder. He agreed he's a real alcoholic in a serious condition. So he took step one. Again, he knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family, whom he had deep affection. Interesting. There's that strong reason. So if he was, a hard drinker, he'd be done forever. A real alcoholic doesn't respond to reason. Yet he got drunk again. So he explained to them what had happened. He didn't want to drink, but he loved his family. The obsession won. You see, our reason didn't hold him in check. We asked him to tell us exactly what happened. Here's his story. let's do a quick review of putting this together in layman's terms and everything. Um, so he has this good life, a wife, family who he loves, and go to hell and back for him. He's got a very lucrative agency. He didn't, very lucrative. He inherited. He has a World War I record, so he gets, people like that. Everyone likes him. Smart guy. He's restless, irritable, and discontent. He drinks, becomes violent, and it's just a cycle of drinking. But he loses his car dealership he owned. He loses his family, goes to rehab, gets a sponsor who explains to him the allergy obsession and the spiritual solution 429. And he does step 3, and he gets his family back, gets all his stuff back. All's great. He didn't take the action. He failed in larger spiritual way of life. He didn't take the action. So he did not do 429. Because of that, he got drunk over and over again. And they keep hammering home to him step 1. So this is his story. So as we go through this, let's see that, he's mostly concerned with his own thoughts and needs. You're going to see a lot of personal pronouns in here. Let's count I'm going to enunciate the I's in here a little bit and see if he's focused on himself or other people. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I guess Monday, maybe didn't work on Mondays back then. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated. Ooh, what's another word for irritation? Resentment. Did he say I got honest with myself, did inventory, found out what was driving me to that resentment? No. Let's see what happens and look at more eyes. I felt resentful that I had to be a salesman for concerned I once owned to drinking. That's his mindset going in there. So he's as he's walking in the door, or as he's driving, or as he wakes up in the morning, he's resentful. He has to be the salesman. Every day he wakes up, he's resentful. And then he walks in the door one day. I had a few words with the boss, nothing less, like go to hell, jerk. Few words with the boss. His boss could have been, maybe his boss was an employee he hired. Maybe it's his brother. We don't know. Probably told the guy off, or talked down to him and says, here's how I would do it. The other guys, I'm in charge now. After you go to hell. Just a few words with the boss. Nothing else. Nothing serious. And then I decided to drive into the country. What's really driving him? Question. Resentment. He's stuck in self-centeredness. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way there, I felt hungry. So I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. All the personal pronouns. I had no intention of drinking. I thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I have been going there for years, making a lot of excuses. I had eaten there many times when I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. Ordered another sandwich, which is strange. I mean, it's probably a big sandwich, as you would assume, roadside place, and decided to have another glass of milk. So his mind at this point is all about himself, trying to figure it out. And he has a resentment. And let's see what happens next. Here comes the drum roll. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind, see, italic writing, crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it wouldn't hurt me on a full stomach. And we laugh at that. But that's what we do. We go to these childhood reasonings why it would be okay to drink. The obsession takes over. He didn't think that, what happened to his thoughts of his family? Nothing came to mind. He didn't take out his phone list. He didn't call the service center or call the 800 hotline. No, he didn't call his sponsor. Look what he did. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into my milk. I vaguely sensed the strength in the blank spots. We'll get to that later. I was not being any too smart, but felt reassured. The obsession talking. As I was taking whiskey on a full stomach, of course. Their experiment went so well, I ordered another and poured it in my milk. What's happening now? The allergies kicked in. The phenomenon of craving has kicked in. He's in the more, the 4, 5, 6, and 7s. That's, didn't seem to bother me. So I tried another. He's off, he's on a run now, on a spree. Let's start one more journey to silent for Jim. One more trip to rehab for Jim. You hear all the things which should have come to mind. Let's just look at them one more time. The threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of the intense mental and physical suffering which drinking has caused him. That never got crossed our minds, ever did it? He had much knowledge about himself as alcoholic. So he had all the information. He had all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea he could take whiskey if he only mixed it with milk. Wow. I thought they said he was an intelligent guy. He is, but that's this foolish idea. That's the obsession there. We look at all those things. Remember, the obsession, reoccurring, persistent idea of drinking that doesn't respond to reason. It tells us that in the 3 types of drinkers. The moderate drinker, strong reason, good reason, strong reason for the hard drinker. Real alcoholics don't respond to reason. All, is pushed to one side. So you see the insanity of the first drink, feeling reassured I was taking, whiskey in a full stomach. That's why he had the second sandwich, I guess. I just thought of that. In a full stomach. The first time I read this, I thought, well, I don't do that. I mean, of course, I was 24 years old in rehab, not knowing my ass from a hole in the ground. And then the next time I read around 96, it fascinated me, not because this guy believed, he wouldn't get drunk by putting whiskey in a milk in a full stomach. What fascinated me was he did not remember all the reasons. And I was like, oh my God, how do these guys know this shit? I'd done the exact same stuff. All reasons why I shouldn't get loaded were vanished. Like they never exist. Alcohol's not cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's the obsession, because I'm going to go drink and use despite knowing all the consequences involved, and they're all going to get erased. Jim did not say to himself, if I drink, I might lose my family. That didn't come to mind. This might cause me to physical suffering, like I said before. Well, I'm alcoholic. This won't turn out well, like they said. Nothing came to mind. That's the strange mental blank spots. The strange mental blank spots is when you're supposed to raise this defense against the obsession, against the first drink. Some people can do that. They don't have allergy obsession. Sound reasoning is supposed to kick in. Common sense, self-knowledge. It's gone. This story really nails the alcoholic's thinking prior to the first drink. The realization that is, the story is so insane it can only come from an alcoholic mind. The best thought that came to his mind, was mixing it in a full stomach, with milk. That's what we do, though. That's what alcoholics do. We have obsession so strong, so powerful, it takes sane, rational thinking and flushes it down the toilet. I mean, Jim's story is a classic, what we call in the rooms, the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. We say it every day, the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. Oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and all fired up on step 1 and step 2. Yeah, sure. And step 3, the decision, and all of a sudden, you give them a 4-step, and 1, 2, 3 shuffle. Except they shuffle backwards. Real alcoholic, they do the first 3 steps, they're ready to do it, but they get the girl back, they get the house back, they get the kids, they get the job back, they get the promotion, whatever it is, the car back, or they get what is I see happening is they get not guilty in court. And so they don't seek change. Everything's good out here, but they're still maladjusted life, still full of finality, still restless with discontent, still resentful. The only significant they've done is in recovery is not drink. The mind is more and more tortured than ever, and so of course they're going to seek ease and comfort. So remember that question on 35. Let's go back to that question on 35. What sort of thinking dominates the alcoholic mind and repeats time after time the desperate? Think about what word desperate means. The desperate experiment of the first drink. I love how he calls it experiment. So let's go back to 37 to see what the answer is. So what sort of thinking dominates the alcoholic repeats time and time that just makes better the first drink. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. Look at this. Here's a great way to break down insanity. How can such a lack of the proportion, the ability to think straight be called anything else? That's why, step two says, says, believe in power of greater self can restore. So sanity is not, he's telling us that we're insane. We need to be awakened. But insanity is more than putting whiskey in milk or drinking, knowing you lose your family and consequences and all that, or detox. It's all of it together. Insanity is knowing it's not all that stuff, but it's the real insanity is knowing you will suffer from an illness no human power can overcome, and then you try to overcome it with human power by going to meeting after meeting after meeting 3 times a day, and you huddle together in groups, trying to shield yourself from temptation. And when that doesn't work, we treat the insanity with alcohol. And oh my God, relapse again. Hitting yourself in the head with the hammer, trying to get rid of the headache. And if they don't drink again, they're probably suicidal. So I'll remind you one more time, insanity does not come, that cannot overcome insanity. Self-will can overcome self-will. The mind that is the problem cannot solve the problem. It's like a sick mind can overcome a sick mind. But insanity will tell you so. That's why we need steps. Back to the book. You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it's not far-fetched. For this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. Not some of us, every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon consequences. A lot more, some of us. I mean, for us, the story is kind of kindergarten comparing to some of the stuff we did. But there was always a curious mental phenomenon, obsession, that parallels with our sound reasoning that invariably ran some insanity, trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. It doesn't respond to reason. The insane idea went out. Next day, we asked ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. Wow. So we've all been there. Even more insane is saying is, we say, how could that have happened is insane, but it's even more insane when we said that 2 hours ago, we're drinking again. We just said, how could it happen to me again? You're crying to your family and you're drinking 2 hours later. That's what we do. You might start shaking in 2 hours and have to have a drink. In some circumstances, we've gone out deliberately and got drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. You wonder why we do inventory, right? But even in this type of beginning, we were obligated to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light what always happened. We now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious effects throughout during the period of premeditation of what the trick of consequences may be. It doesn't come to mind. So the big book has lots of powerful stories. Bill's story, and there's stories in the back, and there's stories, within the book. The minister's son we read a few weeks back. The guy accepted a sum of money from a bitter hated business rival. Talks about in this book. The man of 30. We just read Jim's story. We'll read Fred's story in a little bit. This is my personal favorite, the Jaywalker, because it's so crazy. It's not really a story though. This is a parable. So a modern dictionary, a lot of people think we think of parables, think of the Bible, but there's parables all through spiritual realms. And a modern dictionary describes a parable as a short story to teach us like a moral lesson or principle. A 1930 dictionary defines a parable as a short story using everyday events to teach a spiritual truth. Interesting. That's from 1930s dictionary, different mindset. So that's the point, of the Jaywalker. It's going to use a lesson, everyday event, jaywalking, kind of strange, but so that the reader, so we can understand this insanity of the first drink. It's not meant for us to relate with jaywalking, though, because people say, I don't understand. I never jaywalked. It's purpose to help you understand the person's mindset prior to jaywalking and how insane it is. So our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible. Incomprehensible means unintelligent with respect to the first drink as that an individual has for passion, let's say for jaywalking. So the term jaywalker, you gotta remember, book is written in 37, 38, came out 39. And there was no laws for jaywalking. And the big cities was where you saw the cars. You go to New York, you see cars. You could drive to Akron on a back road, but you barely see cars. It's not a lot. And there'd be the country boys they called hicks, and they would come into the city and they didn't know these rules. They would walk right in the middle of the street from a car and they would yell out, hick walking, hick walking. And so a hick was a J. So they turned it into jaywalking. So that's the term they used in New York for hicks in those days was J. So that's just a little thing there. So the modern definition for jaywalking is across the street or road unlawfully because it's against the law. And go back to 1930s dictionary. One who crosses the street endangering themselves and the lives of others. The older definition is perfect, how dangerous it was. It looked like you're endangering yourself and the lives of others. So he's not only putting his life in danger, but everybody's. But does he give a crap? Is he going to, say to himself before he jumps off the curb, I wonder who I'm going to hurt in this situation? Does knowing how dangerous it is stop him? Let's see what happens. He's not going to, he's not doing jaywalking here. Let's just go. Anyways, let's see why he does this. He gets a thrill. Another word for thrill is buzz. He gets a buzz like we like to get out of skipping in front of fast moving vehicles. So he gets this rush when it's not the jaywalking, he doesn't run on the street. He gets this rush out of jumping in front of the car and barely making it. That's his obsession. It's not jaywalking, it's a near-death experience from it. And when he makes it through, he's like, whoa. And he keeps doing it. He enjoyed himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. From this point, we would label him a fool chap having queer ideas of fun. I mean, strange ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he is injured several times in succession. You would expect him, condition, if he was normal, to cut it out. So again, he barely escapes himself, from this, and he's like, you didn't say I better stop. He goes out and does it again and again and again. And he gets the ominous warning from his friends that he might get killed or hurt. But then he gets hurt over and over again. A normal person would say, I'm done with getting hurt the first time. Well, let's see if he's normal. Presently, he gets hit again. This time he gets a fractured skull. So now he gets the fractured skull is a life-threatening injury, right? And especially in those days, they would drill in the person's skull, to try to drain the fluid, and then time to kill him. But is almost, dying stop him from jaywalking? Let's see if he's normal again. I haven't answered that question yet. Within a few weeks of leaving the hospital from the fractured skull and the draining of fluid out of his brain, whatever they did, a fast-moving trolley breaks his arm. So, you mean to tell me on the way home from the hospital he gets a fractured skull? Oh, you mean to tell me on the way home from rehab that guy drank again? And we would sit there the first time we could not get it when we were young, and now we get it. So this guy on the way home from the hospital gets jumps in front of a car again, gets a fractured skull. But it's not just a car, it's a trolley, faster than a car, bigger than a car. He's going to bigger and better things. So I guess I answered the question if he's normal, because a normal person, if he had a fractured skull, would probably never do it again and almost died. I mean, what happened to him last time? He didn't even come to mind, right? He straightened no blank spots again. Even more insanity ponder, he jumped in front of the trolley. Like I said, it's bigger, faster than the car. but then he has a moment of clarity. He tells you he's decided to stop jaywalking for good. Remember when our friends would tell us to stop drinking and we'd say, I'll do it when I'm ready. But then the next time we see them, before they could say anything, we would tell them we decide to stop drinking just so they would talk to us the rest of the night. That's what they're talking about here. Tells you decide to stop jaywalking for good. So he swears off forever. He's done. The big question, can he stay stopped? Can he keep on, the jaywalking day at his head? What's his mindset when he's not jaywalking? Is he restless, irritable, and discontent? Is he thinking about jaywalking? Is he telling old jaywalking stories? He's he's insane trying to probably trying to fight off the obsession. Doesn't work. What so he's don't jaywalk no matter what. That's what he's doing. But in a few weeks he breaks both legs. On through the years, this conduct continues. So you see where he's at now. Not quite done, but now his unmanageability is going to kick in. On through the years, the conduct continues, accompanied by the countless promises to be careful off the streets. Like, here's the unmanageability. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce, and he's held to ridicule. Oh, there's a jaywalking guy. He tries every no means to get jaywalking idea, the obsession out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum in rehab, hoping to mend his ways. Like it's gonna mend us. That's his bottom. Can't work anymore. His wife left him. He goes to rehab to get the jaywalking out of his head. Now he went to rehab. He's got to be done. But the day he comes out of rehab, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. This man be crazy, wouldn't he? The same day he leaves rehab, he races in front of a fire engine, which again is bigger and stronger than the trolley this time. Breaks his back. You may think this illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? Think about it. We who've been through the ringer have to admit, if we substitute alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration fits exactly. Now that's what got me in this story. When he said that line right there. Because I read this story at the beginning, I'm like, what's this guy talking about? But then if you substitute it, it makes sense. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we've been strangely insane. Strong language, but isn't it true? So it's a perfect description of the insanity of the first drink. The first time like I said, the first time I read this, I thought it was going to be stupid. And then all of a sudden, Bill nailed it. Especially when he says he can no longer work, gets a divorce, his health, all the unmanageability stuff. I was like, that's me. That's me. Remember, the first up to page 43, it's a That's Me book. That's why there's so much on step one. You want to see that's me. But maybe read the paragraph again and again. This story what got me fascinated in the big book. I started to really understand it and want this. And of course, when I had a spiritual awakening, it made this part of the book even more exciting. But this parable was equivalent of a person going to rehab over and over again and still gets drunk, nearly dies, ODs, swears it off and ODs that night, leaves rehab and drinks again. He cannot, get the idea out of his head. And he's got to knowing he can never sleep, he do it. He's got to do it again and again. He can read every book on the dangers of jaywalking, talk to others about jaywalking, do 90 jaywalking meetings in 90 days, whatever they call it. But know all the dangers from actual experiences. He's still got to do it. Consequences that don't come to mind. So he's going to do it against his will. Truly drives home the power of the obsession. Self-knowledge avails us nothing. Don't respond to reason. Back to the book. Some of you are thinking, Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell me is true, but it doesn't fully apply. I've been told that before. We admit we have some of these symptoms. They told me that before, but we did not have gone to the extremes as you fellows did. They tell me that before. Nor do we likely to. Here's what, and I ask them, what are you talking about? This is what they tell me. We understand ourselves so well after what you have told us. Such things can never happen again. They told me that as a sponsor, as a counselor, heard it all. And here's what they always say: I have not lost everything through drinking, and certainly do not intend to. And here's the line we get from a lot of sponsees: "Thanks for the information." I got that line a lot. Thanks for the information. They don't have to tell me thanks for the information, but that's what they're saying. But they told me it for. I really appreciate everything you said in the first, 3 steps. But I mean, I don't need to know all my fears. You know, that may be true for certain non-alcoholic people who, through drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But the actual potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, here's the italic writing, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. You can go to this book every week, but if you don't do the steps, it's not going to mean anything. You know, this is a point we wish to emphasize and reemphasize, to smash home upon alcoholic leaders, as has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let's take you another illustration. So on page 39, this is the story of Fred. This is a guy named, I love this guy's name. This guy's named Harry Brick. Story is a different slant in the big book. Sobriety is June, I don't know what it was exactly, June 1938. So Fred, this guy's a little different than some of us. Fred is a partner of a well-known accounting firm. Some of you might relate with this. His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of a promising child in college. Hey, so not every alcoholic's on the street. You know, he is so attracted to personality that he makes friends with everyone. Well, it wasn't my story, but I can understand. If ever there was a successful businessman, it was Fred. To all his appearance, he is stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, he is alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital. We had gone to recover from a bad state of the jitters. But there it is again. The nervous disposition, probably restless irritable discontent. Let's see if that happens. It was his first experience of that kind, and he was much ashamed for it. Far from admitting he was alcoholic, he told me he had come to the hospital to rest his nerves. Of course, when I was a counselor all the time, alcoholics and dope fiends would like track marks them down their arms and say, "I'm here just to rest for a while. And once I get my mind straight, I can stay clean." I would ask, "Are you here because of consequences, or you don't like your life anymore?" And many times the guy will say it's both, but some of those guys would come in at 20 and they would come back 36 years old and say, "I don't like my life anymore." And I would even know who they are, right? The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so, in spite of his character and standing. Fred would not believe himself alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. So he's not interested in the steps. Where I said it about step 1, you cannot move forward until you admit defeat, right? It's only said got to do 100%. And that's no lurking notion of main defeat, of course, powerlessness. So we told him what we knew about alcoholism, allergy, obsession, right? He was interested. He conceded. This is very important, that he had some of the problems. So that's not step 1. He had some of the problems. I got a couple of those. It's not going to step 100%. But here's why. But he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. So he's not convinced he's hopeless. He was positive this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he'd acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. So his plan of recovery is to rely on the mental defense of humiliation and suffering. Anyone ever had total humiliation and suffering, or the worst experience, you're not going to get arrested and think you're done for a couple hours and you just drink, So he's going to remember his last drink. So what he's going to try to do, sober. Let's see how it works out for him. We heard no more Fred for a while. I saw a guy the other day with that shirt on his has said on his shirt. But that's how it worked out. We heard no more Fred for a while. One day we were told he was back in the hospital, this time quite shaky. Perfect time to work with the person. Perfect time. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us, even a better time to work with a person. The story he told was most instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination of all other concerns, yet was fond of his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. And here's those eyes again. I was very much impressed what you fellows said about alcoholism. And I frankly did not believe it was possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink. He's basically saying you guys were cute when you explained that. Is what he's saying. Oh, that's cute. But I was confident it could not happen to me after everything I'd learned. Hmm. Sounds like self-knowledge. I reasoned I was not as far advanced as you fellows, that I've been usually successful in licking my other problems. Here's the real reason, that I would therefore be successful where you guys had failed. I'm going to prove these guys wrong. I'm going to show them that, my first AA meeting, I sat there and I thought, these people are screwed when I saw stuff on the wall. I said, I'm in the wrong place. See what that says it here. I felt I had every right to be self-confident. There was only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. So believe it or not, it's a very popular program in recovery. That's a very popular program in recovery, exercising willpower and keeping on guard. Well, it's not really a program. Let's see how that works out. And that frame of mind, and what about my business? And for a time, all went well. All was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks. And here's what happened to a lot of people. I began to wonder if I was not making too hard work over a simple matter. I remember thinking that was way back in the day. Maybe I'm making a big deal about this. I went to rehab 3 times in 6 months. And um, one day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I'd been out of town during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Physically, I felt fine, so this day's going good. Neither did I have any pressing problems, so no resentments, no fear, no or worries, no fear. My business came off well. I was pleased and knew my partners would too. It was the end of a perfect day, not clouds and rising. It's not a dark day. It's not, he's not hungry, lonely, angry, tired, whatever people say. It's a good day. Not a dark, thing. I went to the hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner. That's normal. Here comes the drum roll again. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the obsession, came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. And here's the obsession. That's all, nothing more. Here, that's where the mental defense is supposed to kick in. Talk him out of it, right? Play the tape through. I think the tape is broken. He's going to remember he's alcoholic. No, all things he learned. Where's his phone list? I ordered a cocktail and my meal. Then I ordered another. So now the allergy is starting to kick in. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me. A highball would be fine before going to bed. A highball, right? Like one. So I stepped to the bar and had one. Here, boom. Now the cravings really kicking in. I remember having several more that night and plenty more the next morning. Several, who knows how many that is? A lot. And then plenty more the next morning. So he's off and running. I have a shadowy recollection. There's a strange amount of blank spots of being in an airplane bound for New York, and finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. That's convenient. The driver escorted me about for several days. I knew little where I went and what I did. Anyone ever do that? So he's in a blackout. Then came the hospital unbearable mental and physical suffering. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over the evening and watched it. This is a very, very important paragraph. Over the evening and watched it. Not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. So he had to do experiment number one we talked about earlier. Go over into his barroom and try some controlled drinking. But his is a little different. He wanted to see if, he didn't think he was making a big deal of it. He didn't believe he was as sick as these guys. This time I had not thought of the consequences at all. That so much for exercising willpower is strained on blank spots. I commenced to drink as carefully as the cocktails of ginger ale. I now remember what my alcoholic friends had told me, how they had prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come and I would drink again. I remember one of my friends had gotten sober and he said, if you're not willing to go to any lengths, you're going to run into a wall. Time and place will come. And my obsession was like, this guy's full of crap. In 96, I got a big book sponsor and I told him, you know, he told me, he goes, he got me through step three. And then, but I remember him speaking all this stuff. I was like, he's full of crap, you know, and, and that's why that was my motto. These guys are all full of crap. I'm like, I did that third step prayer and probably someone here now is thinking this guy's full of crap. I don't know. I've had, sponsees like, for friends that come back to me after me, our sponsees want to know if I was full of crap. So they asked me to sponsor them again, you know, and, you know, all I can say is check your experience, check your thinking, because that's what our mind tells us, stuff like that. They said that, back to the book, they said that though I would raise a defense, it would someday way for some trivial reason for an unimportant reason. That's what it means for having a drink. Well, that did happen and more. For what I learned of alcohol is not criminal. That line right there with modern recovery, all the rehabs we go to, all the means we go to. So let's say it again. For what I had learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. So many go to rehab and learn everything they can. Are go on TikTok and follow the recovery guys and these book studies, everything, you know, and they are told by the rehabs, where not to go, know your triggers, red dog, blue dog, and all this stuff. Everything they learn doesn't come to mind. That's a disease right there. Look what he says. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. So he realized he had the obsession. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in those strange mental blank spots. I had never been able to understand people who said, so to answer the question of why you didn't want to do the program, here's what it says. I never understood, I was never able to understand people who said that a problem had been hopelessly defeated. He never, he beat everything he did. Everything he did was successful except this. So he thought he had to, prove these guys wrong. I knew then it was a crushing blow. So self-reliance was crushed. Two members of Alcoholics Anonymous, I assume Bill and Bob, came to visit me. They grinned, which I didn't like so much, and asked him if I thought myself as alcoholic and if I was really licked this time. I conceded to both propositions. So he fully conceded that himself he's alcoholic. Step one. They put on heaps of evidence to the effect an alcoholic mentally, such as I exhibited in Washington, was a hopeless condition. They cited cases out of their own experiences by the dozen. This process snipped out the last flicker this process snipped out the last flicker of conviction that I could do my job myself. But that's more like step one right there. I remember when I said, if you don't do step 100%, you can't move forward. I said it earlier. Now, this guy said, he liked the steps, the moral values of them and what they offered. But he only says, I only have some of the problems. I'm going to prove you guys wrong. So he's not good. Since he's not 100%, he's not good the rest of the program. Then they outline the spiritual answer in the program of action 429, which we're going to talk about next month, over the next 6 months, which 100 of them had followed successfully, recovered. Though I had only been a nominal, small church member, process was not hard to swallow. The program of action, this is what scares some people away. The program of action, 429, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic, extreme. It meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window. That's not easy. That was not easy, he said. Several lifelong conceptions out the window. Maybe those conceptions were where my God is the only God there is, or God is, is out here, and maybe it's, it's about forgiveness or honesty or confession. Maybe it's about amends. Who knows? Maybe it's about just being kind or altruistic, helping others. Look what he says. But the moment I made up my mind to go through with the steps, 429, with the process, I had this curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved. In fact, it proved to be. Let's go see what Bill says something similar on page 14. Now, remember what this guy just said. He said, the moment I made my idea, I had this feeling, the moment I went through the process, a curious feeling my condition was relieved. Bill says on 14, these were revolutionary and drastic proposals, concept, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory followed by a peace and serenity I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. The moment he decided to go through with it, back to 42, same idea. Look what he says here on 42. Quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles 429 would solve some of my problems. No, it says all my problems. That's a bold statement right there. Why is it not? But it's not. Why do they say all in there? Because that's their experience. That's my experience. There's nothing these steps can't solve. Nothing. It says all my problems, not some of them. It doesn't say problem either. It doesn't say what solved my problem. It says my problems. I have since been brought to a way of living more and more satisfying, I hope, more useful than the life I lived before. My old manner of living was by no means a bad one. But I would not exchange it for the best moments I have now. I would not go back if I could. Here's the thing, you have to experience the world of the spirit. You have to experience the world of the spirit before you can compare it to the old one, to old life. You're not going to know how to do it. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He had felt only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics will be pretty badly mangled before they commence to solve the problems. That's my experience. When brokenness occurs, the opportunity to live is born. That's what's important. When brokenness occurs, the opportunity to live is born. You can say another one is pain is a touchstone to growth, right? Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of them, this is Harry Thibault, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to us. What you fellows say about the hopelessness of the average alcoholic flight is, in my opinion, correct. As two men, such Roland and Bill he's talking about, whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt they were 100% hopeless, 100% human power, apart from divine help. Had you offered yourselves as patients at my hospital, I would have not taken you, even if I was able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. This disease will break your heart. It will. Though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach to such cases. For most cases, there is virtually no other solution beyond human aid. Once more, The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. So there's no effective mental defense. If you look at this, except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide that defense, such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. So put it in layman's terms is you can have all the self-knowledge in the world about alcohol or drugs, whatever, in your condition. And because the obsession isn't enough to stop the first drink. Human power cannot help us. Not your parents, not your wife, not your husbands, not your family, friends, other people in recovery, the people at the meetings, the sponsor, the guy with 67 years of sobriety, especially your own. But God can. We must find God. I'm going to tell you a big secret. You already have it. All you have to do is seek it. That's the beauty of it. This is not a program of not drinking. It's a program of finding God. So you can get rid of self. There's no way to get rid of self without his aid, right? Step one is about admitting we're powerless, defeated. I'm broken. I can't do anything. I got to put myself back together again. I cannot put myself back together again. So despite the ugliness of defeat, it paves way for reconstruction. And even though I'm defeated, I'm convinced I need power, meaning with defeat, the journey towards new life begins. Only a real alcoholic knows what it's like to be defeated. Only a real alcoholic knows that. Only a real alcoholic knows what it's like to have this disease. And only a real alcoholic knows what it's like to reach down within the bottom of their soul and find the strength to seek power. So we can discover a new world and never look back. Tonight's the last night where we're going to talk about the symptom of alcohol. Thank God. From here out, this book study is going to be all about the spiritual journey and how to properly apply it and take action. We're going to go so slow, it's going to be snail pace. I'm going to stop where I feel like it. But I'm going to try to make sure everyone can understand, especially when we get to the program of action. I'm going to show you this is not a drinking program. A not drinking program. It's a God program. And the journey it's the journey from destruction of ego into consciousness. That's what it is. I mean, it should be called Emotions Anonymous. But through this program is where we know infinite peace, where we discover that we are all just a fragment of God. We just have to discover that. So when a person seeks this new life by these spiritual principles, one of the first questions brought up is God. And so over the course of the next month, we're going to talk a whole lot about God. And that gift is closer than you can imagine. It's closer to your own breath. And we'll learn that this is not about acting spiritual. This is, it's about learning to live the spiritual life. So the truth is that no one really walks in these doors with a concept what it means to be spiritual. I haven't met one yet. They tell me they do, but then why did you drink? Right? Why did you drink? So no one comes to these doors with a concept of spiritual. Even the guys who relapse again and again at 15 years at one time. So next week, we're going to look at the spiritual appendix. And we're going to talk about the difference between spiritual waking and spiritual experience to prepare us for this journey in step 2. We're also going to look at the difference between belief and knowledge. What does that mean? We're going to look at the atheist, the agnostic, the theist, and all that stuff. And we'll begin to look at we agnostics. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I highly recommend check it out. I'm going to stop there.